Spain, a nation celebrated for its dazzling sunlight, breathtaking flamenco, and refreshing sangria, often represents more than just a country for many. It's the embodiment of a dream, a place where perpetual happiness and carefree living reign. But is everything truly as idyllic and perfect in this paradise as the vibrant and alluring tourist brochures often portray, creating heightened expectations for travelers? Svetlana, a young woman from Russia who has resided in beautiful Barcelona with her loving Spanish husband, Javier, for several years, runs a popular blog called Not Like Back Home. With infectious good humor, she shares her personal observations about what constantly surprises, occasionally irritates, and sometimes genuinely delights her in her everyday life abroad, encountering a different culture and mindset. We deeply love Spain, but it sometimes infuriates us to no end. Svetlana has long grown accustomed to the fiery temperament and passionate emotionality of Spaniards, who are accustomed to expressing their feelings openly and without reservation. We sincerely and wholeheartedly adore our beloved country, but at the same time, we constantly grumble and complain about everything, finding reasons for dissatisfaction even in the smallest things. Javier once confessed to her over a cup of aromatic morning coffee, which they were sharing on the cozy terrace of their home. With a somewhat feigned, yet sincere, theatrical gesture, he rolled his eyes, expressing his clear displeasure with local peculiarities and established habits that seemed illogical and outdated to him. Endless tedious queues in shops and banks. The exhausting siesta that practically brings all life to a standstill in the middle of the day, disrupting all plans. And the eternal Manana de Mora, which, unfortunately, very rarely arrives on time, and more often than not, is postponed indefinitely, creating inconvenience and making people wait. Svetlana merely chuckled slightly upon hearing her husband's confession. "Oh, that's very familiar to me. It's like a favorite song that I've heard many times before." In Russia, too, there are plenty of people ready to criticize everything around them, from the capricious weather that constantly changes to the noisy and annoying neighbors who don't let them live in peace. But she has always been particularly bothered and offended when Russians, while abroad, begin to tell foreigners with some kind of painful delight and even masochistic pleasure about the broken and bumpy roads in their hometowns or the dilapidated old houses that need urgent repair. As if this is the only thing that can be found in their huge and beautiful country, as if they have nothing else to be proud of. If something bothers you a lot, it's better to make an effort and try to change it for the better, rather than presenting everything in an exclusively negative light to other people, complaining about your fate and painting a bleak picture. She says, disapprovingly shaking her head and expressing her disagreement with such an approach. Javier, carefully noticing her reaction to his words, was slightly surprised, but merely shrugged in response, not intending to argue. Well, yes, we Spaniards really love to grumble and complain about life. It's in our blood. But at the same time, we sincerely and devotedly love our country with all our hearts, accepting it with all its merits and shortcomings. And you Russians seem to be true masters in the art of self-deprecation and belittling your own numerous merits, presenting yourselves in an unfavorable light. With the speed of light, Russian instant bank transfers versus Spanish slowness and conservatism. Life in faraway Spain unexpectedly opened Svetlana's eyes to many things and helped her realize that Russia is ahead of Europe in many aspects, sometimes in the most unexpected and unpredictable areas, where it would seem it should be lagging behind. One day, she needed to urgently transfer a small sum of money to her close friend who lived in Moscow. She quickly and without hesitation opened the familiar mobile application of her bank, made a couple of simple and intuitive clicks, and in some incredible 3 seconds, the money was successfully credited to her friend's bank account. Javier, who happened to be nearby and was carefully observing what was happening, almost choked on his aromatic morning espresso from astonishment and extreme surprise. No way. This is some kind of fantasy. Are you serious? Here in Spain, you have to wait a whole 2 long days for a regular bank transfer to reach the final recipient. It's just unimaginable. Svetlana couldn't resist a small and harmless jab at her beloved husband. Are you still naively thinking that everything in Spain is like in a beautiful and magical fairy tale where everything happens with a wave of a magic wand? Javier only helplessly shrugged in response, smiled sheepishly, and admitted his mistake. We live here as if in some distant past century, completely detached from reality. While your modern and technological banks are flying at supersonic speed, making instant transactions, everything here is done slowly, inefficiently, inconveniently, and extremely conservatively. And this is indeed the case. Conducting banking operations in Spain is an entire captivating adventure, requiring enormous patience, endurance, and the ability to wait from the client. Svetlana still recalls with dread and horror how she once waited an entire endless week to simply open a regular bank account in one of the local banks because the responsible employee first went on a mandatory siesta to rest and recover. And then suddenly he had a long weekend and he became unavailable. In Russia, I would have done all the necessary formalities in 1 hour, without leaving my cozy home and without wasting time on the road, she says, with a slight nostalgia recalling her active and eventful weekdays in Moscow. How do you even manage to survive with such meager salaries? Sincere Spanish bewilderment and sympathy, however, there is also a completely different side to the coin that evokes sincere surprise, incomprehension, and even sympathy from Javier, who cannot find a logical explanation for what is happening. He simply cannot understand and realize how Russian people manage to survive and support their families with such low and meager salaries that barely allow them to make ends meet. I remember how in Moscow we met a young and educated guy who worked in a complex and responsible position, but earned only $300 a month, he tells Svetlana. And he constantly complained about his hard life, saying that he barely had enough of this ridiculous money to feed himself and pay for utilities. How do you even manage to live in such inhuman conditions and not lose optimism? Svetlana paused for a moment, trying to find a worthy and truthful answer to this difficult and uncomfortable question that made her think about many things. In Spain, salaries are, of course, much higher than in Russia, but prices for food, essential goods, and various services are also quite high, so living here is not as easy as it might seem at first glance. Renting a modest apartment in Barcelona, located not in the most prestigious area, can easily consume most of your monthly income. And it is better not to even remember the exorbitant utility bills so as not to get upset. The bills come simply astronomical and force you to save on everything. Javier, after thinking a little and weighing all the pros and cons, added, "But you in Russia have much more opportunities for maneuver, self-realization, and the implementation of your most daring ambitions. You can boldly start your own business without fear of taking risks and achieve success, becoming rich and famous. And here you have to wait for a salary increase for 10 long years, as if you are standing in an endless and meaningless queue for a miracle that may never happen." Svetlana only nodded her head in complete agreement because she had nothing to object to or add to her husband's words. She understood that he was right. Spanish stability and predictability, which many locals value so much, sometimes looks more like stagnation and a complete lack of any prospects for the future. And Russian people, even despite their modest incomes and numerous difficulties, always find an original and non-standard way to get out of any difficult situation, showing miracles of ingenuity and resourcefulness. Shops and quality of customer service. Where it is faster, more convenient and polite, it is better. It is obvious. Another thing that greatly struck and surprised Svetlana after her move to Spain for permanent residence is the huge difference in the work of local stores and the quality of customer service, which leaves much to be desired. In Russia, she was used to the fact that everything is always at hand and available at any moment, as if by magic. Fast delivery of food and various goods is carried out within an hour or even faster. And the cashier in the supermarket punches purchases with incredible speed, not forcing customers to wait long in line. In Spain, however, a regular and unremarkable trip to the store turns into a real exciting adventure, requiring a lot of time, patience, endurance, and peace from the beer. Once I decided to order groceries online with home delivery to save time and effort, she recalls with a smile on her face. And I waited for 3 long days for them to finally bring them to me, although they promised to deliver everything the next day. But something went wrong. In Moscow, the courier would have already managed to drink tea in my kitchen, chat with me a little about life, and even make friends during this time. Javier only laughed loudly and contagiously in response, hearing this story. Well, we have a completely different philosophy of life here in Spain. No one is in a hurry and rushing. Why run headlong? If the bright sun is shining outside the window, the birds are singing, and you can simply enjoy the moment, enjoying every day you live. And Spanish cashiers are generally a separate and very interesting story, worthy of writing an entire book with many funny and instructive stories. They can leisurely and with great pleasure chat with each customer on a variety of topics, completely ignoring the huge and nervous queue that is growing behind their backs, like yeast dough increasing in size with each minute. Svetlana, who was used to the fast and dynamic Moscow rhythm of life, was initially very annoyed and nervous because of this. But then she just waved her hand and stopped paying attention to the slowness of the Spaniards, deciding that this was not her problem and it was not worth wasting her nerves on it. Well, okay, let them chat. In the end, I'm not late anywhere. I don't have important things to do and I'm not going to run anywhere headlong. Roads and overall level of comfort, Spanish slowness and sluggishness versus Russian resourcefulness, ingenuity, and ability to solve problems quickly. Javier once sadly and regretfully confessed to Svetlana that the state of roads in Spain is his biggest pain and constant headache that does not give him peace. In our village, the asphalt was last laid about 20 years ago. I probably don't even remember when it was, he says. And in Russia, I saw with my own eyes how the whole road was completely redone in one night, as if by magic. It's incredible. Is this some kind of magic or a real miracle that I cannot explain? Svetlana only smirked in response to his surprise. This is not magic, but a simple and urgent need that must be taken into account. Our harsh and unpredictable winter will not wait until you finally get your act together and start doing something. Otherwise, everything will be covered with ice and snow, and it will become impossible to drive. In Spain, according to her, everything always happens in due course and at a strictly established pace. No one is in a hurry and rushing, and the authorities do not show particular interest in improving the situation. So you should not hope for quick changes. No one is in a hurry to fix the numerous potholes on the roads, which pose a danger to drivers, or to remove garbage from the streets in time to maintain cleanliness and order. Everyone doesn't care. Here it feels like time has just stood still and is not moving anywhere. Everything is happening very slowly and sadly, she says. Recalling how in Barcelona she waited several long weeks for the utilities to finally deign to repair the broken lamp near her house, leaving her in darkness and fear. But in Russia, according to her personal observations and memories, even in small and remote cities they try to maintain order and cleanliness so that people are comfortable living, roads are repaired in time, and courtyards are carefully cleaned of garbage and snow without waiting for the arrival of spring. Javier only shakes his head in surprise in response, amazed by Russian organization. Your people know how to move quickly, respond quickly to emerging problems, and effectively solve them. But we all live in relaxation. Do not rush anywhere and do not show particular initiative, preferring to go with the flow. The Spanish view of distant Russia, a mixed feeling of surprise, admiration, and numerous unanswered questions. Javier, having lived with Svetlana under one roof for some time and getting to know her better, began to look at distant and mysterious Russia with completely different eyes, discarding all the prejudices, stereotypes, and false ideas that he had before. I used to think that you had wild bears walking the streets, and people lived in wooden huts and ate only stale bread. He laughs. And it turned out that you have even overtaken us in many things, have gone far ahead and have achieved great success. It's incredible. I was wrong. He likes how quickly modern technologies are developing in Russia, how easy and simple it is to order a taxi through a convenient mobile application or pay any bill using a smartphone without leaving home. But he still has questions, and he has accumulated quite a few. He cannot understand some things. If you have so much cool, modern, and technological stuff in Russia, then why do you underestimate yourself so much and belittle your numerous merits, putting yourself in an unfavorable light? Why aren't you proud of what you have? He sincerely wonders, trying to find an answer to this difficult question. Svetlana only shrugs in response, spreading her hands. Probably, we are just used to looking for a catch even where there is absolutely none, and not believing that good can be true.